hello there, and thank you for joining me for the first edition of Telile 24/7 in 2023. I'm your host, Adam Cook, and we have a busy show for you this week. Later on in the program, you're going to hear from representatives of the Eastern Counties Regional Library Network about why they'd like to relocate their St. Peter's branch and how they'd like Richmond Municipal Council to come on board to help. You're also going to see a special report about how tax sales work in Richmond County and why one municipal council feels that the municipality isn't getting everything it could from these types of property tax sales. And you're also going to see a couple of words about recent decisions made by Saltwire Media about home delivery of its two major daily newspapers in the Strait area. But we begin with an update on the research currently being conducted into whether Richmond County should have 5 municipal councillors or expand to 7, and whether municipal boundaries need to be redrawn either way. That process started up last summer when the strategic planning exercise for Richmond County invited people to come to public hearings to weigh in on municipal boundaries. However, the municipality has reached an agreement with the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board to extend this practice into February because they'd like to see some more engagement on the question of whether there should be 5 or 7 councillors and what boundaries they should have. The issue came up at the most recent regular meeting of Richmond Municipal Council. In just a few moments, you're going to hear from District 2 Councillor Michael Digdon about his concerns about the process. But first of all, here's an interview I conducted with Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette after the meeting to talk about why the process is starting up again and how people can get involved. Can you give us a sense on what the conversation is about now and what you're hoping for in terms of the UARB?
Yeah, for sure, Adam. So, one of the things that has been concerning to us through this whole process of reviewing the boundaries, which is something we are obligated to do every 8 years, is that there has been really low public participation. We're talking about less than 1% of the population sort of responding to surveys, open houses with very few or no attendees. And we realize some of that consultation happened over the summer, which was a very busy time for folks. COVID is still a factor. So we are going out to do one more round of consultation. We were able to secure an extension into, I believe it's February, which gives us a little bit more leeway to do another round of surveying. We also had a data error on one of the maps that had gone out in the last round of surveying, and we felt strongly that needed to be corrected before we would submit anything to UARB based on that data. So the corrections have been made. The consultant spent a couple of hours with us in a special meeting last week, and we are going to be going back out looking at both a 5-district and a 7-district option. Things that I think we need to keep in mind is that UARB has been having a tendency to downsize their councils. I think, we learned that lesson 8 years ago when this council went from 10 to 5, and now it's really about kind of adjusting the boundaries and trying to make sure that we are within a reasonable parity of each other, that we don't have one councillor sort of representing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more people than another, because it makes it very challenging and it creates some inequity in the system when we have that. That being said, we do have special considerations here, such as the fact that Richmond County is an Acadian region. We need to keep that in mind. There are other considerations such as this in the sparsely populated region of the far eastern end, like out towards Framboise, that area. A lot of area to cover, but very few people living there. And so we need to make sure that what we're creating is conditions for success for both any councillor that would represent those given areas, but also the constituents that would be looking to reach out to a councillor on their behalf. So these are all the considerations. So the public can watch for the next round of surveys to go out.
Now, just a moment ago, Warden Mombourquette spoke of a meeting that Richmond officials had held with members of the UARB just a week before the regular council meeting. Well, the councillor for District 2, Michael Digdon, had some leftover questions after that meeting was held. Here's what he had to say at the December 19th gathering of Richmond Municipal Council in Arishat.
I did make some contact today with the UARB board, explained who I was, and I was informed that the ultimate decision is a council decision, not a UARB board decision. So they'll take, I guess, a recommendation, or they won't, they'll send it back to us if they feel that it's not suitable. However, the lawyers don't send back the zones or break up the districts. That's up to council to do. So I just, in saying that, I went over the scenario with the person on the phone today that we have currently, and they felt with minor adjustments here or there that we could send it in without making any major changes. And in the past, I was just told that that most of the counties actually don't meet the plus or minus 10. There's several of the districts that stay out. Stantec should have our numbers because they were the one who did the last one.
Yeah.
So I know we asked them last week. They're going to forward them to me, the link and the numbers and the email, just to show what was in 2014, 2016.
Right.
Anyway, I'll bring that back or
And
share
certainly anything that you get from them.
I will, and
definitely
I'll
share.
loop everybody in
Yeah.
the email, and you can, the link that the lady's gonna send me, I'll look at it and kind of go from there. I just thought, before we make any major changes or disruptions, that
Yep.
I would bring that to everybody's attention.
Okay. What Councillor Digdon was referring to this evening was sort of process-related from UARB, and that is something we're working through. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, what we're really hoping for is that people will respond and let us know specifically what their thoughts are about representation. I mean, we have what I think is a really great team here now, but maybe the regions that are represented in those 5 districts need to be tweaked, or maybe it needs to increase to 7. So those are the kinds of questions we're going back out to the community to ask.
Are you optimistic that this time around you will get that public buy-in and that public participation where you didn't have it over the summer?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, generally when people are fairly pleased with how things are going, they tend to be less vocal, you know, as it's just it's a human nature kind of situation. So it's hard to say what's going to happen, and I think a lot of it depends on other things going on in the community. A lot of it will depend on, you know, if we're trying to get people together, what's the situation with COVID. I think we're probably going to stick to virtual because of the tight timeline, but, you know, we're going to do our best to advertise it, and certainly would ask any member of the public to reach out to your local councillor to have a discussion if you have any questions about it.
Is it possible, and I mean this is looking into the tea leaves here, but is it possible that with the public knowing that there is a choice to be made potentially between 5 districts and 7 districts, that might generate more active discussion this time around?
I mean, it could. That was the case in the past as well. You know, but I think people are recognizing that likely if we move to a 7-district system, it is going to cost more money, right? I mean, the larger your government is, the more it's going to cost you. I've heard some feedback about that. I've heard some feedback about the fact that the current districts are not quite right. You know, they need to be tweaked a little bit. There are roads that are split in the middle, and just some things like that certainly need to be addressed. But it's been since that first round of surveys, I would say probably late summer, it has been a choice between 5 and 7 based on public input. But as I said, public input has been low. So at the end of the day, council will have to make a decision, and we will be considering the level of participation because if we're talking about major structural change, we're gonna have to make sure that there's some major input into that, right?
There was only one presentation made during the latest regular monthly meeting of Richmond Municipal Council. That was courtesy of 2 representatives of the Eastern Counties Regional Library Network, specifically the network's CEO, Laura Emery, and a representative of the Library Network from St. Peter's, former municipal councillor Claire Rankin. They're 2 people who are hoping to relocate the current Grenville Street location of the Eastern Counties Regional Library to a new location that's an old familiar face to many people going into and out of St. Peter's, the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission building that used to house the NSLC's operations on Grenville Street. Here is Laura Emery and Claire Rankin appearing at the Municipal Council meeting of December 19th, 2022, to explain what they have in mind and how they'd like Richmond Council to get involved.
We're very excited to bring this opportunity to Council for your consideration. And it is the St. Peter's Hub opportunity. So for those who may not have it top of mind, here is the schedule of the current St. Peter's Library location. It is open 28 hours a week, and it is staffed 30. This is pretty standard for Eastern counties. It's the same schedule as our Petit de Gras location. We only offer, well, we don't only offer, but we offer service in English at the St. Peter's Library, and we offer bilingual service at this Petit de Gras Library. So you can get a sense of some of the services available. And one challenge of the location, which is part of why we're here tonight, is that the library is set quite far back from the road. There is a sign, but it's very easy to drive by if you don't know exactly where it is. And that's not great for a library because you want visitors and folks to the community to discover it. And come in, because of course any public library in Nova Scotia can serve anyone. Everybody is welcome. So that's...
Although it is next door to this farmer's pantry.
Which highly recommends it. As a person who enjoys espresso, little shout out. I love you guys. You know, that's probably helping increase our circulation, I am sure. And speaking of increasing circulation, obviously the pandemic was very challenging for many community services. However, you can see from the upward slant that our circulation is starting to recover, our use is starting to recover. We did get new users, and we have 422 active registered users. So there are folks who have library cards, but if they haven't been in the last 3 years or so, we don't necessarily count them as active. They still may be in the system, and they're certainly welcome to come back, and we encourage everyone to use the library. And it's great. We had 48 new users. I'm sure we got some folks who signed up for the library after the pandemic and the distribution of rapid test kits at libraries, which of course is a really valuable service in this area, as we're in a bit of a testing desert, is how public health described it to me one time. And so that's been a role that's certainly working in libraries I never expected, but it does show the value of having a public library in a community. There are surprise things that we can end up doing, and government has certainly understood that libraries have a valuable part to play in helping us all recover from the pandemic. So what else can I tell you about that little graph there before we move on? The extremely low blue section, that was when we were at curbside only. So we were still getting people books and materials, but the province didn't count that as open hours because people couldn't go into the facility, and that was a safety aspect. As we have only one staff member there, it was important to protect their health and make sure we could keep providing service during that particularly challenging time. So the St. Peter's Library is very interesting. I'm sure folks maybe recognize this adorable face. That is Farley Mowat, who we were very fortunate to have speak at the 2012 opening of the St. Peter's Library. And that is a very great way to kick off a library. He was delighted and surprised and just in wonderment that anyone would create a library in this day and age, and he was quite right. It was actually very visionary of council to put this service into play. It was certainly the result of a lot of work. Eastern counties needed to find the staffing money, which we did out of the mandated contribution by realigning services and ensuring that the county benefited from its tax dollars. But the county made it a significant investment in the facility and the rent and just putting the shelves in and all of that, right? So this is, what we're talking about tonight is really seeing what we can do to make a change to enhance the service. The St. Peter's Library is lovely, but it is very small, at approximately 675 square feet that are usable. Okay, so the shelves are not counted in that. And so, we really want to look at how we can go forward and certainly honor the legacy that Farley Mowat helped to start.
And one of the things people might not realize is Farley's father was the chief librarian for the province of Saskatchewan back in the day. Farley lived out there. That's where he first got his start in wildlife, because he was living in the middle of nowhere, actually. And nobody from Saskatchewan's listening. But his father was a librarian, and Farley learned his love of books from him.
Yes, and he had a very entertaining speech about that.
I bet.
Yeah. And so one thing that it's really important for council to understand is this is not my idea. Okay? I got enough work, all right? This is the community's idea, and we are in service to the community, that's something we all share, the library and the council. And so, you know, it's funny how these things come about. There were discussions in 2019 and 2020, a series of 3 community conversations held in St. Peter's to discuss the main street of the village. And there were a lot of ideas expressed at those meetings, which involved obtaining the use of the former NSLC vacant building that's at 9992 Grenville Street. So there are a lot of different ideas that came up, and of course one of them is that the library should go in there. Now, I wasn't at those discussions, but this is how these things happen. People spontaneously think that would be a great place. It's right on Main Street. It's a storefront opportunity. It will help promote the service and be kind of a showcase for the community. So that happened, and a couple years later, here we are at council talking about it. And you know, the library was one idea, and the other idea that's important to this concept was the Visitor Information Center. Now, I certainly don't speak on behalf of the VIC in any way, but there is a strong example of a VIC housed in a public library in Antigonish. And so this is not new territory, and it seems like an excellent opportunity because we do provide information at the library and information about where to eat, where to stay, where to go and see, and what businesses are in the area is incredibly important information, and our staff are often acting as a default VIC during the winter months anyway. So if we have the brochures in the library and it's February, it's all going to make sense to folks. So it's certainly part of the concept that we wanted to bring to you tonight. And so that was part of those community discussions. I think you were there, Claire, were you not?
Yeah, the other ideas that were raised were a recording studio, a community kitchen, although there's one now starting in River Roots. So, and then, of course, the gym closed, and that became the de facto place to put the new fitness center in the back of the old liquor store. Plus the fact, it was a brick building. It seemed fairly sound when the liquor store moved away from it, and the village got it for a very reasonable price. So everything was coming up roses, as it were, when we were looking for a place to how to fill the building and the best use for it right in the middle of town.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing. Libraries work very well when there's foot traffic inherently in the building, right? You will go people who will suddenly sign up for the library because they're going to the gym and it's right there, and why not? And vice versa, that people do get that inherent foot traffic and they start to see what's available in the community. So there's a good logic to having the multiple capacities within the space. You can see the location here, and again, really central, very important in terms of ease of use for the public and the community. And, you know, there's aspects of this location that I want to talk to you tonight about how it could benefit and enhance library service, because so much of library service is constrained currently by the space and the location. Did you have anything to add?
Well, just that another enhancement to this location is the fact that the village just signed a lease with Irving Oil to take over the parking lot across the street. And so that includes a lot of space which we need in St. Peter's for parking. There's going to be some enhancements done at the parking spot, but the fact that it's now a signed lease means that there'll be extra space for patrons of the library and the gym and other people through town.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so you can see the proposed layout of the facility. The library and
it might help if you popped it on the presentation view.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize.
It's a little small.
My
okay.
apologies,
No,
everyone. Thank you.
Just from the current slide. There you go.
Yeah.
The second one over there.
There you go. Great. My apologies, everyone.
The monitors are
Okay,
just.
that's all right.
There we go. There we go. That's better.
It is better.
Yes,
Sure
much.
is.
Okay, so one change from this drawing, or one thing that I want to draw everyone's attention to, is that the plans will be developed with a door between the library visitor information space and the community room, because the proposal is to have that community room as part of the library space when the library is open, so that activities and programs can be scheduled in the library, and if it's not in use for that, people can go in and find a quiet area to read in or study. So that is part of the concept. We have confirmed with ESRL's insurance company that there is no problem having the Visitor Information Center open while the library is not open. So people can potentially come in and still enjoy the library while they're stopping by to the VIC. Whether or not they'll be able to check out books depends on whether or not I can get funding from the province for a self-checkout. And if that was in place, that actually would probably make it quite easy, where VIC staff can say, just check it out yourself over there, no problem. So,
Well, Eastern Counties Regional Library has the only self-checkout library in Nova Scotia right now.
the open library. We shouldn't even throw that possibility
Okay.
out there. We do have the only open library in Atlantic. Well, there's only 5 in Canada, but it's essentially a library that you can open with your library card and go in and use and check out books yourself with a self-checkout. So certainly, I think there's capacity to expand service, at least in a small way, by having the VIC staffed and having that opportunity. At the very least, everybody can enjoy the space, right? So yes, that community room, you've got a storage room and proper accessibility. And
One of the features that the village is insisting upon is the fact that there'll be a public washroom that'll be open to anybody coming inside. It'll be open for the public to use at any time.
And I can assure you, people stop at libraries to use the washroom quite frequently when they're traveling, so it'll all make sense to everyone.
Well, it's a separate entrance, but still.
Yeah, but it all makes sense to everyone. Okay, so is there anything else to tell you about this? Well, there is an actually really important part to tell you. You see how the library visitor information section is empty. Okay, that's very important because we didn't wish to create a design or put in any kind of proposed furniture without doing the work with municipal staff and stakeholders and the community and seeing what kind of approach everyone wants to take to designing and integrating the VIC in the library if council's in support of this. So we didn't want to put the cart before the horse. There are expenses certainly attached with moving and attached with setting up furnishings and shelving and so on. And these expenses are not something that Eastern counties can bear. We can try and fundraise. There's a few sources I'm already in early preliminary talks about. We can certainly search for grants, but we need to have a mandate or a direction or a support from council to be able to take that to funders and say, this is happening and we'd like to seek support for the following things within the space. So there's a lot of work that has to be done if this concept is something that council wants to support to make sure that when we do come back for a final approval, all the work's been done and we've done the most that we can do to mitigate any costs associated with this. So there's lots of discussions that have happened, but there are more that need to happen about how the VIC and the library will combine effectively, and the work, like the flow of the foot traffic, will enhance both services is the goal, obviously. So that's something I wanted to draw your attention to about the space. Okay, one thing Eastern Counties has that we can bring to the project is we received a $10,000 grant for a Wi-Fi extension. And I should probably get my notes here. The Department of Community Services funded ESRL and other libraries for the installation of a wide beam outdoor Wi-Fi access point. Okay, so this equipment needs to be mounted as high as possible, and it takes the Wi-Fi internet connection that the province pays for libraries, and it expands it, it broadcasts it. Now, we've put in a fairly conservative estimate of the actual range that the Wi-Fi is likely to have. Claire diligently read the specs, and we can expect it to be a little bit larger if it works well.
They use the example of a city block. So it ranges from about 300 to 400 feet range in all directions.
Yeah, and so we've purchased the gear, and we were in process of kind of testing that, but the installation costs, we have $8,000 to put towards that, and that could be included in the tender. And so, you know, that is hopefully a positive vision, creating a free Wi-Fi in the downtown core in St. Peter's. That is sustainable because it's based on the library internet connection, which is paid for by the province, right? So to me, this seems like an excellent location and a good service enhancement for everyone in terms of helping to connect people.
Someone who works in her car a lot, I can. Those locations are wonderful.
Yes, and
but I do need to note we are kind of close
great.
to time.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
The building has a great opportunity to increase accessibility. This image is from the Rick Hansen website, and I know that the Rick Hansen certification is something that both the village and the county are working towards. And if we move to a larger space, going from 675 to about 1,200, 1,300 feet, we have the opportunity to expand what is on offer for the community. So increase the collection size by 25%. And of course, we have a room, and we can work with the partners in the community and expand the opportunity for community to connect and have programming. And that's something that we really have been constrained by the current location. So I would see that as a great enhancement to get people together and to learn together and enjoy together.
Like language classes? Becoming very much of a concern around our place.
Yeah, so certainly opportunities to do that if we have the space. All year-round access for the VIC, that has to be a good thing in terms of promotion of local businesses and facilities and services. And any questions? We're hoping that this is an attractive concept, and we could, I think it's called a support in principle, to do the work necessary to bring back more detail and specific costs and specific plans to council. But we didn't want to go ahead without introducing it.
So that's what you're looking for at this stage of the game, is kind of a notional support so that you can do the homework you need to come up with the costs and the design. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I think the new location is perfectly suited to the building, to the community, right there on the main street. I think all the points you've made have been, you know, well received by me for sure. I definitely would support the move. You know, can't guarantee on the money parts, but we can certainly entertain that once we have an idea of what that looks like.
How many users are currently using the library?
Well, it's hard to say because people can just pop in and grab a rapid test kit. Does that count? But we do have 422 members, registered active members. So these are people using the library every month, basically. We have a 3-week loan period.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a quick answer. So the second one, I hope it's just as quick.
No.
What are you going to do for parking?
Parking.
Well, there's parking in front of the building. I mean, I doubt if you were ever there when it was operating NSLC, but there is that.
I did have to pick up some on the slow grade.
And there's also across the street, because the village just leased the old Irving parking lot. And then adjacent to the building is also the Foodland parking lot for after hours and everything. So.
Yeah, there should be lots of parking.
Well, St. Peter's needs parking.
Yeah, I wouldn't
we
say
don't
lots,
think this
but
is.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it on viewpoint, and in behind, is that an option? In behind the building?
No, there's very little space there.
okay, is that good?
So the parking lot we're talking about is the parking lot where you guys put your tree up every year, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
It's a large lot.
Yeah.
You know,
It's where the flea markets and all that.
Right.
That lot's going to be enhanced with other things, but it'll still be primarily a parking lot.
And how long is that lease for?
Well, until Irving decides.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's a
Yeah.
long term.
Yeah, that's good.
Deputy Warden, did you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, no, just I guess, you feel comfortable that this will be an improvement space-wise, even though I know obviously the square footage is increasing quite a bit, but given that you're combining it with the VIC, that it'll still be a net positive?
I do believe that, yes, 100%. And the VIC and the library will complement each other very well. So, and VIC is not open all year round, so that space then inherently becomes part of the library space. Mm-hmm. And in terms of the design, you could set up a desk that might break down during the off season, and then you've got, even more. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it just really depends on that, vision of all the stakeholders. Mm-hmm. Thinking what is best for really enhancing the community service aspect of it.
And the converse is true in the summer when the VIC is open 7 days a week and the library isn't, then the VIC will be still there to function in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you could get the self-checkout, then you'd be golden, because really then the library would be open extended hours, which would be really lovely.
At least for, picking up books, right, which would be great for people and so convenient. And of course, anyone who visits St. Peter's can use their card through our sharing system, the same page catalog, so, everyone could benefit from it. So it's an attractive selling point, I think, for the community.
You mentioned the Annie Ganesh example of the two coexisting. Is that the People's Place library?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Lovely library. I've been there many times.
It's a beautiful community.
It really is. I've worked out of there many times. Yeah, I've been to meetings there and I've worked out of there, and it's a really great concept.
Yeah, and we want to mirror as many aspects of that as we can for, a smaller but still powerful kind of facility.
Right. Great. Okay. So if there's no other questions, I guess at this point I'd ask council if anyone is prepared to make a motion to provide notional support to the concept to support the, I think you call it a community hub.
I will make that motion.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Any further discussion on that item? Okay. So if that's being said, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. So thank you very much for your time this evening. It's much appreciated. We look forward to seeing the rest of the homework.
So what did Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette, whose District 4 takes in St. Peter's, have to say about the Library Network presentation? Here is her response when I asked her about it shortly after the council meeting on December the 19th.
It was a great presentation. I think it cleared up a lot of questions that I had in my mind about it. And certainly as a person who, I believe I facilitated the community conversations that Claire was referring to 3 or 4 years back, that was definitely something that came out front and center, was to talk about, okay, let's have the library in a more central location. Let's combine it with the VIC. Our VIC is in a very challenged location right now because of the erosion from the Boudreau Lake and the situation there. So we have an opportunity here to create some efficiencies and to get maybe some better bang for our buck. So that's pretty exciting to see the community thinking that way as well. And when we see, what's happening in other areas, such as Annie Ganesh, we mentioned People's Place Library. I think if we had a right-sized version of that for the eastern end of the county would be great. We see what happens over here at La Picasse and the beautiful facility they have there, and I just would like to see more of that library service be able to be offered in the community. So very exciting, early days, but glad that council was really supportive notionally of the idea, and certainly next steps will be starting to budget around that and what it's going to look like, what it's going to cost.
Of course. Your thoughts quickly on the Visitor Information Center moving into that community hub as well?
Yeah, no, that it's a very exciting idea. The VIC where it is now it is on the main drag, and I think that's a really important piece. You want to be on the main thoroughfare, to encourage that foot traffic. But the idea of being able to combine those pieces and maybe create better service for both because of that combination is pretty exciting. So it's and I know that the staff at the VIC has been supportive of the idea as well. So that's an important consideration, and I think everybody's seeing a lot of potential with it.
All right, one last question on that, just quickly. Just the idea that site has taken on a whole new identity over the last few months. I know the gym facility moved in there just earlier this year. Your thoughts on the general spirit and the potential for that specific site?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a game changer. You know, when you look at the community, the village of St. Peter's specifically, and that intersection. You know, there's the four key corners, and we've got great commercial activity happening on two of those corners. You know, we've got the potential of the hub, and then the potential of the new, you know, the former Irving parking lot being kind of a combination of parkette and including some parking, and it's pretty exciting to think that you have like both the commercial interests of the community and kind of more social interests of the community represented in that what we consider our downtown center, right? So I think it's going to be a great momentum builder for the community.
Now, the relocation of the St. Peter's Library branch wasn't the only District 4 issue to come up during the latest regular council meeting in Richmond County. Here is Deputy Warden Brent Sampson outlining two specific resolutions that came out of the Committee of the Whole meeting that took place just a week earlier and that came up to a formal vote at the regular meeting on December the 19th. Take a listen.
I move that Council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole that Council approve the draft loan guarantee requested by the Village of St. Peter's in the amount of $56,407.50 for the purposes of purchasing a new sidewalk tractor.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
The committee discussed the Richmond River Roots Market Garden Society's request for a letter of support for the Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund proposal. I move that Council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole that Warden Mombourquette draft a letter of support for the Richmond River Roots Market Garden Society for their Sustainable Communities Challenge Fund proposal to obtain a second climate battery greenhouse.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Could I have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sean Sampson. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
Right now on Telile 24/7, we're going to devote the next few minutes to some recent Richmond Council discussions about upcoming tax sales involving Richmond County properties. We're doing this week partly because we're not sure all of our viewers know what a tax sale actually is. Well, when a property owner isn't paying the taxes owed on that property to the municipality has the right to hold a public auction until it receives a bid equal to or higher than the outstanding taxes, interest, and expenses that are owed to the county concerning that property. That's when a tax sale takes place. And there were recent discussions about it at the latest Committee of the Whole meeting of Richmond Council on December the 12th, and at the regular monthly meeting that took place just a week later. However, not all councillors agreed that tax sales are the way to go in cases like this. You're especially going to hear in the next few moments from District 2 Councillor Michael Digdon, who fears that the county may not be getting back the value that it's truly owed from these tax sales. So let's get the conversation going right now with this footage from the December 12th meeting of Richmond's Committee of the Whole.
From our revenue manager, Callen Cowan, regarding the tax sale of properties in February in 2023 regarding minimum bids. So you'll see from the memo that Callen has made a few recommendations, one being that District 1 property number 01415298 that council authorize the selling of that property for a minimum acceptable bid of $5,000. That if it doesn't sell at that minimum bid, then to proceed and sell the property for basically any bid. I believe that one has been on the tax sale for, it's been 3 times so far and hasn't been successfully sold yet. So would councillors be in support of the recommendation from the revenue manager as such?
I am, and I'll make the motion to proceed
Okay.
as recommended.
Okay, could I have a seconder on that?
I guess I'll second it for question purposes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Digdon. So it's been moved by Councillor Melanie Sampson and seconded by Councillor Mike Digdon that council accept the recommendation of the revenue manager and CFO, and the council authorize the revenue manager and CFO to sell the property number 01415298 for a minimum acceptable bid of $5,000, and if this property does not sell for the minimum acceptable bid, to proceed and sell the property for any bid. So,
Yeah, I hadn't seen the $5,000 figure. I don't know if I missed that.
Okay, maybe I'm seeing it here in my notes, but could have been just conversation
Okay.
that we had.
Yeah.
I know
No, so
the
the-
property you're referring to, because it's.
Yeah, the
come up
memo
several
shows that the last minimum bid was $10,000.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So this is just a recommended amount by staff. It's not in the memo, it's
not
just
in
a
the-
recommended motion.
Okay, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because my only thought on that was, should it just be almost any bid at
Just
this
any
point? It's
bid.
been 3 times, yeah,
Just needs to go.
yeah.
Well, I think that's basically what it says.
Yeah,
We're gonna
so
say
yeah.
we'd like to have 5,000, but we're at the end, we're gonna take
Well, the
whatever.
way it works though is that when this property comes back up at tax sale in February is that we'll re-go through all the minimum bids set by council from the first tax sale to now. So if, let's say, the first bid was $100,000, we would ask for any bids at $100,000 before we go down to the next level. So we're not used to seeing properties go to tax sale like 3 consecutive times. Really, in our opinion, what should be happen is if it doesn't go at 1, then the second tax sale should include a motion to have any bid. So you'll see on the next set of properties where it only went once, now it's going the second time. Really what we should be doing is selling it, if it can sell for at least $1 in the second tax sale, just because of the amount of time that goes into it, the administration cost, the fees that are getting added to the accounts, we'll just end up writing them off anyways. So that's the reason for the any bid.
I suppose this one was a little bit unique, just in the sense that number was awfully high, right? Based on some of the costs associated with that property.
Yeah.
It's not very often, I can't think of any other properties that we've seen that came up at those numbers.
It's huge.
No, but we're gonna see them, we are going to start seeing them, and I guess that's why I seconded the motion, only so we could have conversation on it. I don't believe in giving away, and I don't like saying it like that, but giving away taxpayers' money. And if we're gonna pretty much give this land away for free, then I see no reason to give it away at all. The county of Richmond can proclaim the land just as easy as anyone else, I guess. I don't know how that works, but I just find it very disturbing that we paid so much money to tear down an old co-op. Have it, I guess, the landfill, the tipping fees, the construction fees, and now we're giving the land away, a corner lot, for little or nothing. And again, it seems to be that was the past practice. However, moving forward, I think if we can't get what land is worth, then we're better off just to leave it within the municipality.
okay. So are you suggesting a different kind of use for it, or?
Well, again, if we're giving, it's a corner lot with water and sewer. Just a corner lot alone with water and sewer is worth more. And I know people are waiting for it to get to a certain price. And that being said, I don't think I know we're not landlords, and we're not in the, I guess, the business of keeping property, but I don't believe we're in the business of using taxpayers' dollars to dismantle the property, and then give it away for nothing.
Okay. So, I guess that's a procedural question from us, I guess, or I'm not sure how that would work if for Richmond County. Currently, the land is not owned by Richmond County, correct?
Yeah, so the years ago, a long time ago, my understanding is that the municipality, based on the MGA, has the ability to vest the property. But we stopped that a number of years ago, and the main reason is for that is because it's exactly that, is that the land has no value. So again, you're seeing this property go to tax sale, 3 consecutive times. We're going to a fort. So if it hasn't sold for 10, it's likely that it's going to sell for literally nothing. So unless the municipality has, unless it's an attractive piece of property or the municipality has an intended use, I see no reason to vest it. We would just recommend selling it at tax sale. This is the process. It is unfortunate, as Councillor Dignan says, is that in these situations we're taking a big hit. But we're just basically following the MGA and trying to collect the best amount of money, or the most amount of money that we can, to recoup some of the costs.
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
What did it go for the last tax sale?
10.
Was it 10?
10,000.
was
That's what's listed here, yeah.
I didn't think it was
My worry would be, I think, that if we end up holding on to it, that it's not generating any revenue.
Right.
So it's only making things worse over time. Whereas even if we don't get, I know it is disappointing to not get very much for it now, but let's say we get a small amount for it now, well, hopefully that's turned into something and developed, and in time, there's tax revenue coming from that.
Right.
The idea is that it comes off our accounts receivable list, and that someone hopefully will pay taxes on it on a go-forward basis, right? So there'll be additional revenue in that.
And hopefully develop it. And,
Do
yeah.
something with it.
So, and again, to your point, you know, I guess if the value of the property sells for 5,000 and the value of the corner lot is only $5,000 or $6,000, then what we're going to make is going to be peanuts off it, as opposed to, just a thought, as we go down the list, I'm sure we're going to run into them again. Again, it's not like we're selling a piece of swamp in the middle of nowhere, we're selling a corner lot and I do understand that nobody has jumped on it. However, the first number was very, very high.
It was, but I mean, even if nobody jumped at it at 10,000 either, right?
So would this be a seal bid, or is it in open?
Public auction.
What, pardon me?
Public auction.
Okay.
Is there water and sewer there, Jason? I don't think there is
I don't
across the
believe
bridge.
there
eh?
is, no.
No.
I think
The
we-
water and sewer run, oh, Chris will be able to better answer that, but the water and sewer, I believe, runs to the church.
Right.
And then it's ran privately from the church across, I think, isn't it?
I think we had this discussion
So
one
I
time.
don't think there is water and sewer
Yeah.
there.
No. I think there might be water going across to that plant, I think,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, but nothing going to the
Right.
former hall.
to the resident, yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
I'm fairly sure we did have this discussion one of the other times. We
Yeah.
were on this
Yeah.
specific property, of course, it comes up every time, but
Yes, yes.
yeah. Because I didn't realize that either before, that,
Yeah.
so there isn't a hookup, yeah.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor to proceed with the revenue manager's recommendation. Is there any further discussion on this item? Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Nate from Councillor Digdon. Okay, that motion is carried. All right, thank you, everyone. Great points, and it is a stark reality we're facing for sure. So the next piece of the revenue manager's memo referred to properties in District 2, 3, and 5.
Just a
Yeah,
correction, that
sorry.
first one is actually in District 5, not 2.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Plan.
Is that the Callen Road?
First one is there.
Yeah.
Throwing my pen around here. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You're right, District 5. Thank you. So in Districts 3 and 5, I'll list the property numbers when it comes time to do a motion, but the recommendation, I guess, at this time is to have a minimum acceptable bid of principal only, and if they do not sell for the minimum acceptable bid, to sell them for half the principal amount only, and if they don't sell for that, then to proceed and sell the properties for any bid. And that gives staff, I guess, the option to, unload the properties because they have already been to a tax sale in, I think it was June 2022. So.
So this would be, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a little bit different than we've done previously, right? Because generally, we've only dropped them to principal only.
That's right.
Yeah.
No,
For the first
no,
time
in the
after.
past, during the tax sales, they used to go,
No, I mean, since we've been here, when they didn't go the first time, we only then dropped it to principal only,
yeah,
correct?
correct.
Remember how-
Yeah, I don't
yes.
mean years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah.
previously.
Prior
they were-
councils did
Just,
it.
yeah, on the first,
Yeah,
I guess, the second time around, yeah. First time back.
yeah. So, so.
No, and I'm not, I think I'm okay with staff's recommendation on that. I mean, these aren't huge numbers on these, and it's probably a lot easier if they're able to be moved, whether or not, we're, for the most part, the difference we're talking is hundreds of dollars, not thousands, right?
That's correct. Okay. Any other comments on this?
So is there, I guess, is there a larger list than what we're seeing here, or this is just what the,
This is just a list of requested minimum bids.
Okay.
There is a
Yeah.
larger list, yeah, but those,
Okay, so any other questions or comments on the recommendation from staff?
I don't know, I would tend to lean towards just principal only because I just feel like we're still not in normal times of tax sales. Like that June was maybe not as normal as, because we had it in person in June, right?
it was in person and it was packed.
Oh, okay, never mind. I'm with you.
Well, and I think probably because we had a couple sealed bids before that,
Yeah,
right?
then
So,
then I'm fine with that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
okay.
I didn't realize that. Thank you. I should have asked first.
Okay. Deputy Warden, did you have I thought you
No,
had-
I was just gonna say, I could go either way on it, but I mean, I had heard from some people that they like the seal bids as well, right?
Yes, so
And
did I,
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter to me, I'm not partaking.
yeah. Yeah, okay. And is right now, are we currently doing all of the tax sales public auction, or will we go like one sealed bid, one public?
Well, our plan was to resume public auction,
Okay.
but if council's desire is to do one of each a year, because we're doing 2 a year, we could look at that as well.
Okay,
It's really up to you guys. Generally speaking, before COVID, it was all public auction.
yes,
We hadn't done a sealed tender before.
yeah, but I remember your comments that the sealed tender went really
It went
well.
really well. I mean, I know some people are of the notion that it's not as open and transparent because it's a sealed bid, but
Mm-hmm.
it went really well, and a lot of people, we've got a lot of good feedback about it as well.
So the
so-
bid opening is public, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, in the meantime, I think we'll deal with the recommendation from staff at hand, which is to have the bids go forward, first at principal only, and then half the principal, and then only any amount. So could I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. So it's been moved by the Deputy Warden and seconded by Councillor Melanie Sampson. The council accept the recommendation of the Revenue Manager and CFO, and the council authorize the Revenue Manager and CFO to sell property numbers 0246548, 037395111, 039274115, 045375521, 051763228, and 0794463 for a minimum acceptable bid of principal only, and if these properties do not sell for the minimum acceptable bid, to sell them for half the principal only amount, and if they don't sell for half the principal only, to proceed and sell the properties for any bid.
I would only emphasize, like, you know, the minimal acceptable bid is fine, that, open for any amount, I feel is, we're giving land away that, you know, not that we may have use for, but again, that we are giving away for nothing.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Councillor Stickler. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Councillor Digdon has registered a nay vote. All right, thank you, everyone. That motion is carried.
So there's the discussion that took place on December the 12th at the Committee of the Whole meeting for Richmond County. So what happened a week later at the regular monthly meeting when these same tax sale issues came up to a formal vote? Here's the discussion on December the 19th.
The committee discussed property minimum bids for February 10th, 2023 tax sale. I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole that council authorize the Revenue Manager and CFO to sell property number 01415298 for a minimum acceptable bid of $5,000, and if this property does not sell for that minimum acceptable bid, to proceed and sell the property for any bid.
Could I have a seconder on that motion, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
And the motion is carried. Thank you, everyone.
I move that council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole that council authorize the Revenue Manager and CFO to sell property numbers 0246548, 037395111, 039274115, 045375521, 0517-6328, 079-44063, for a minimum acceptable bid of the principal only, and if these properties do not sell for the minimum acceptable bid, to sell these properties for half the principal only, and if these properties do not sell for half the principal only amount, to proceed and sell these properties for any bid.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Warden. There's a motion on the floor. Could I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Melanie Sampson. Any further discussion on that item?
Yeah, so Madam Warden, I'd just like to note the reason for my objection to this is that the it's costing the county and the taxpayers, you know, I guess thousands and thousands of dollars to, some of these are demolitions, and we're selling them for near to $0. You know, therefore, at the end, I guess, you know, my take on it is they don't make land every day, more or less, so it's not costing the county anything to hold on to it.
Right.
Therefore,
It's a fair point, for sure. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Digdon.
So to that point, what I would say is that as long as these accounts are sitting on our receivables listing and not being sold and being used, we're also not collecting taxes on those, so we're further losing money for the taxpayers of the county, and that's why I would support the disposal of these. We're not in the business of holding land, and we're in the business of collecting taxes, so we need new people to own the property so we can collect some taxes on them.
that is a great point. You know, however, I guess we do let lands go above and beyond maybe what they should go for before we look at collecting the taxes. So I think before we, unless we start tightening up the strings, you know, we're letting, you know, one of these properties started off at well over 100,000 and now we're down to $5,000 or a minimum bid. So therefore, we'll never recoup the $95,000 of loss, if we want to put it that way, in the books.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Okay, any further discussion on that item? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay, that motion is carried.
And still with taxation issues, here is a recent update from Richmond CAO Troy McCulloch at the December 19th regular monthly meeting of Richmond Council, talking about how a special service is being offered to councillors by the Property Valuation Services Corporation regarding taxation rules for municipal governments. Here to set things up is Richmond Warden Amanda Mombourquette.
Property Valuation Services Corporation regarding the virtual 101 assessment sessions, and maybe I'll hand them to you, Troy, for comment.
I think we were talking with NSFM, and then they said that they sent some emails around saying that if councils were interested, that they'd come in and do just a refresher course with everybody, just to let you guys know what they're up to, and if you have any questions, you're midway through your term. And they're just looking for a half-hour touch point with you guys. If any date in January that works with your schedule, except the 25th, they are available to do a virtual half-hour session with us. I would suggest that we probably go to an hour just in case we have any questions. But they would like a 1 hour session with you guys if...
So kind of a workshop to take us.
Exactly.
Great.
So we could tie it in with another meeting where you're all together. We could possibly do it at a supper time before one of our council or committee meetings, whatever you guys are up to that makes it convenient.
Yeah, okay. Would folks be more interested in doing that right ahead of a meeting, or? Yeah, like a 6 o'clock? I know that makes it tough for some people to get here, but. Okay, so why don't we try to schedule for 6 o'clock before one of our January meetings? I know one that we don't have already scheduled in there. That sound good? Yeah. Okay.
And wrapping up Telile 24/7 this week, it's not usually the policy of Telile Community Television to comment on the actions of other media organizations here in Nova Scotia. However, since Richmond Municipal Council has expressed concern with Saltwire Media and the corporation's decisions to stop home delivery of two of its major dailies, the Chronicle Herald and the Cape Breton Post, in several communities across Cape Breton, we decided that we ought to share Council's views with you on this subject.
The committee discussed the delivery of the Chronicle Herald and Cape Breton Post in rural communities. I move that Council accept the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole to have Warden Mombourquette draft a letter of concern to Saltwire requesting the resumption of rural door-to-door delivery or consider semi-central drop-off locations and encourage other municipalities to do the same.
All right, could I have a seconder on that motion, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Digdon. Any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
Your thoughts on what this means for residents and why the county wants to get involved at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is something that the deputy warden brought to the attention of the council table, and I'm glad that he did, because, you know, we've certainly heard on an individual basis from folks who are missing that delivery service. Still large swaths of Richmond County that does not have reliable internet service, so switching to a digital subscription service is just not an option for people. And a lot of times it's not an option for some of our most vulnerable people who are needing to stay up to date on what's going on around them in the world and in the community. And I think we need to be having some sober second thought when we start removing reliable news sources, you know, from the hands of our residents, who may, for a variety of reasons, whether they're, you know, seniors or have low internet access, or you know, young people, or whoever it is. When we're removing sources of reliable news from the hands of our citizens, it's a concerning situation. That being said, we recognize it is a business, and you have to run it sustainably. So what we've done is we've encouraged Saltwire to, you know, to certainly reinstate the service of home delivery, but in the absence of their ability to do that, to maybe look at some semi-centralized locations where they could drop off print copies. I know myself, it's, you know, I still very much like that tactile experience with a newspaper, because I tend to absorb and be able to learn. It's just my learning process. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. So it's just something that we're hoping we will be able to find a happy medium on.
And there you have it. That wraps up our first edition of Telile 24/7 for the new year. Thanks to my interview guest this week, Amanda Mombourquette, and a big thank you to my Telile Community Television colleagues for their assistance in filming and formatting the footage from the 2 Richmond Council meetings of December 2022. Thanks to Callen Cowan, Nick Boudreau, and Becky Bourinot. If you have any thoughts or comments about what you've seen over the past hour on Telile 24/7, or just some suggestions for future shows, I'd love to hear them. You can contact me directly, or you can contact Telile in Arichat with your comments and your suggestions. And be sure to follow Telile on social media. For now, I'm Adam Cook. Thank you once again for tuning into Telile 24/7 as we kick off the new year with all the information we can deliver about what's happening in your community. I look forward to seeing you again next week with a brand new show. Bye for now.